Mr. Pace?
Yes.
Come on up.
Hey, nice to see you. This is Harry Dschaak,
Hello.
and this is Christine Marie Katas.
Hello, I'm McCowan. Nice to meet you, Dan McCowan.
Nice to meet you.
Come on up. And then I guess Nick's coming. I don't know. When?
Talk to him. He's going to be here at Treason.
About what time?
2.
At 2? Okay. Come in and go left. I'll get up there with you. Hold on. You come. I'll still him. We'll go right here. And come on in, have a seat wherever you'd like.
Here we go. Here.
What was your name again?
Christine.
Christine. With a C or a K?
C.
And he's Harry.
I'm Harry.
Okay.
Okay, can we request that this interview be recorded?
Can it be recorded?
Yeah, can it be?
It's being recorded right now.
Okay.
Yes, sir. It's our policy.
Okay, well, we have some concerns that we need to just be able to prove that we didn't say anything inappropriate.
Mm-hmm.
Because Robbie and myself are both being sued
Okay.
in civil court. Me in Idaho, him here in downtown
Okay.
for defamation. And
And this is over a report that I didn't get everything about it, but a report that you had written or something like that. And I'm just going to take a few notes just here and there so I don't forget things as we go.
okay. The primary reason that we're being sued is to silence us.
Is what? To
silence us, yeah. They're frivolous lawsuits. They're not lawsuits that the plaintiff can prevail in, and they are both in the process of being dismissed as a matter of routine. His being dismissed probably on its face. Mine, I didn't want it to be dismissed because I'd been sued the year before by the same guy. It got dismissed and it didn't keep him from suing me again. And I'm not rich enough to just keep getting sued and then endure that.
Yeah.
So, what's this about, Rob?
So that's that's what my lawsuit was over, is the Ida Smith.
Okay, and the Ida Smith, one of the things he's being sued for is claiming that Mr. Nemelka was in some way the cause of Ida Smith's death. He's saying that that's outrageous when we all have knowledge that he is the primary cause of her passing.
So basically, on a website, which shows on that Christopher Nemelka made the statement that Ida Smith passed away February 22nd, 2015, and the Smith family claimed murder
To who?
to the police.
They did?
Christopher Nemelka claimed that on his website.
They came in and made a report that it was murder?
They didn't. So the question is, why did he put on his website that they cried murder when they didn't?
So he put a false statement, from what I can tell, because I've looked at the police report. I've got a grammar report. And the only incident of ever mentioning any Smith family members ever being concerned about this death of Ida Smith was at the very end of the investigation when Sergeant Thomas received a voicemail on his phone that he was to call an individual, which was one of the Smith family members, basically because they were concerned about
The suspicious
the
nature.
suspicious nature of Christopher Nemelka. So Sergeant Thomas called the individual, and he reported that he was speaking to a person who was concerned about the suspicious activity. And this was after the investigation. So one of my questions is, do you know when that voicemail came to him? If it was after the investigation, when did you guys leave the scene?
Nick would know, and he'll be here. I mean, I would say it too. I didn't make any phone contact to anybody.
She passed away at 5:40 p.m. on February 22nd, so you guys arrived shortly after.
Our call was at 5:44. And does this show, let's see here. I arrived at 46. No. I was en route at 46. I arrived at 51.
Okay, so you were there at 5:51, and then what time did you wrap up the investigation you were done?
If that's showing it right there, that would be 19:01:25, so almost 7:02.
So when Nick was
Ish.
getting into his vehicle to leave the scene, he reported that there was a message on his machine to call. So the question is, the next morning at 7 a.m., February 23rd, Christopher Nemelka reported that a Smith family member had told the police and claimed murder. So the question is, did
Hold on
he
one
know
sec.
about...
That's one of my supervisors. He's gonna come in, just sit down here. He's not gonna say anything, he's gonna sit down.
Did Nick then go back in and report that to Christopher Nemelka?
I have no idea.
Because Christopher reported it the next morning that the Smith family members, and that was the only report on the whole thing. So.
Yeah, I'm
the
not
thing
sure what
is-
Nick did on that.
So the thing
When I
is-
left, I left. Once I was done, we got in the car and I left. I didn't go back there. I didn't talk to this. I don't know if Nick stayed there, talked to a guy, and then went back in. I have no idea what happened on that, because I wasn't there. As far as that call, I remember Nick saying that he did talk to somebody. I don't know who it was, and basically, it was something to that sort. So, yeah.
Well, our understanding when we got the word.
But Nick wouldn't, I mean, Nick will be here. He can answer all that as far as when and how that worked out, if he had stayed there. And I never was by his car when he talked to anybody. And then he told me after the fact, when I was typing up the reports, that he had talked to the guy and all that kind of stuff. So I mean, that was 2+ years ago. I don't remember anything about that.
Right. Well, when we got word that Ida had passed, we were told that she passed at her home, and that Christopher was not even in the room when she passed, things like that. So there was no real cause for concern. That isn't to say that we didn't suspect that he was involved some way. A closer look, a deeper dive, in his process of discovering or trying to find out what was said and who said it, we discovered that Christopher was in the room with Ida Smith before she passed, administered the medication that was delivered to them, and he left the room, and within 5 minutes she was dead. So he was directly involved in the causation of her death. Now that's still okay. He had a power of attorney. We understand how hospice arrangements work. We know that doctors send home morphine for patients that are not going to recover. We get that. But he had the crises here. The concern here is that he had her power of attorney, and the way and the means that he obtained her power of attorney years before was through deception. And
Who's claiming deception? Did Ida?
No, Ida never knew all of her whole life that she had been deceived. But he ended up with her estate, which had a value, I have heard, between $750,000 and $1 million. So basically, he was conning her and using her, and then when she died, he did benefit from her passing. So the family, this is hearsay, are concerned that they lost their sister to a con, and that she would have done something differently had she known the truth. Now, the case becomes critical because during Robbie's investigation, this past month, since the time he's been sued, Christopher has been on the internet bragging that he deceived everybody and that basically he got away with defrauding people, and whatever he's gotten away with, he's living the good life now. He was able to use that same line of deception to infiltrate one of his followers' company, and they made him a CEO, and he now has a salary of $350,000 a year. Doesn't have to do anything but
Where does he currently live?
right down the street.
He's still down here?
Yeah. He has several properties. Ida Smith's property was the first property that he obtained. But before he had the job with the other company where he had a payroll, he had no job. He was just a prophet. And she believed that he was the true prophet, the true messenger. And so she bequeathed everything over to him, signed everything over. And it wasn't I have that documentation in front of me to show that he did use his influence, his lie, to obtain her property. And then a quick search of the Utah land records reveals that after he got Ida's property, he was able to go ahead and get other properties. Now it shows the record, and this is just public information, the record shows that he has all of these condos that are in his name, plus 2 properties that are in Orem, in Utah County. He has another property here on 200 East that are in Salt Lake County, but those don't show up on the Utah land records, right? The Utah County thing is sweet because you go onto their website and you can see who owns it, then how they got it, and then the history of that dwelling for years back. You can keep clicking on different windows to go back and actually look at the signed documents that are signed and dated, and if any money changed hands. Some of these transactions, we don't know if he paid for them with cash from his daily job, or if he got the money from other followers. But this shows back on 2008 that she willed her property to his wife because he had no credit. And then sometime later, he borrowed $20,000 against her property, and then later $56,000, and then later she put a quitclaim deed over to a trust that Mr. Nemelka put up and named himself as the trustee. So, using the money from the trust, they were able to buy the next property, which is this one. And that one was a fixer-upper, Julie Taggart, and those people there, Dorianne Stubbs, they were all members who lived there, but he kicked them out and sold the property to these people, and they know nothing about the movement. With the sales, we go down the list, you start acquiring other properties. Now I'm going to give you a sidebar here. In 2014, the company that he works for was sued. I'm going to say 2013. He was sued, and the court, the case prevailed or continued for a year or so, and it got down to the point where Mr. Nemelka received a writ of attachment from the court demanding that he turn over all of his assets to the court receiver, who was Mark D. Hashimoto, okay, on May 6th. On May 15th, he started transferring those properties that were in his name into the names of some of his members. One of them was Ida Smith. He put it back in her name. Jay and Lenore Benson from north up in Layton. John and Lily Rowe of Salt Lake. Nathan and Kristen Davis here in Sandy, right? They all went down. He transferred names with a quitclaim deed into their names the exact same day. They went to their banks and borrowed money against it. And the reason for this is quite obvious. they couldn't quit claim it, deed it back if they had borrowed money against it. Now, the realtor notified me. I have a website that exposes Christopher in my name and contact information. He said something suspicious going on. I had no clue about this. I pulled up the record and I saw this. I made a cover sheet like this and a letter, and I sent it to Mark D. Hashimoto. Immediately, Christopher says, I didn't know I couldn't do that. You know, it was a trust. It was other people's money, other people's something. I didn't want to lose it. But it was in his name, and they said you had to know. And these people had to know that what you were doing was hiding assets. We don't know the rest of the conversation because immediately after this they settled out of court, or they started the settlement proceedings. It was a lawsuit looking for $12 million worth of assets. Nemelka and his partner had effectively drained the company and were dispersing the funds when they got caught and settled. The company that sued him, Syntec Global, here in town, settled for the amount of money of the assets that were showing. They couldn't have settled for more. Okay? We know he argued that these people wanted to live there. That's not true, because on September 29th, all of these properties were transferred back into the trust, and it's a fake trust. There actually isn't a trust. It's just his saying so. They transferred the money, then the properties back into his name. Within a year, each of those properties were transferred out of the trust into Christopher's own name, and the properties all remain in his name to this day.
Oh, jeez, you got a watchdog.
Sorry.
Lieutenant Sorensen. Good to meet you. Can I shake your hand or
You
will I get bit?
You know, when he shook her hand, he didn't look us in the eye. Is he
I was
like
trying to hide
that?
her.
It made me nervous.
Who wouldn't?
When Officer McCown shook her hand, he didn't look us in the eye. He kind of went, how you doing? Right?
I don't think that should make you nervous.
It made me nervous.
Did it?
Yeah.
It's the point of it. We try to do it.
Okay. Do you
Tactics.
have any questions about this?
No,
Does it seem to you like there's a...
but it sounds like that was taken care of. There was a
didn't-
lawsuit, they were sued, and,
They didn't press charges.
but it went through a court process.
No, I don't know.
You said it did, because you said the court deemed them to do that.
No, I don't know what the court deemed him to do. I'm saying that the action that was caused was questionable. There's a questionable integrity
Okay.
here. He was able to influence these people to get on board to help him hide assets, because he obviously didn't know that anybody was gonna catch him,
Yeah.
right? So he got away with it, right? That doesn't mean he didn't do it, or am I wrong?
Well, I'm not going that route. What I'm saying is what you told me initially.
Okay,
You went through this whole process, said he went through this, there was a court proceeding where he was supposed to, you showed me a paper in there,
yeah, a writ of attachment.
that he was supposed to do something to the court, and if they wash that out or whatever, that's been taken care of.
Correct. I'm with
Suspicious
you
or
on
not, I mean, I don't.
that. Okay,
It's
I've
not
known
my
about
place,
this since
not my
then.
place to say it's suspicious or not. What I'm saying is if it's been through a court and they've taken care of it through that process, be it a washout or whatever, or no charges filed or no whatever, that's not we can't do anything about that. That's been taken care
I'm
of.
not pressing this charge.
No, I know, but I'm saying we can't, so that's
So it's not important?
not necessarily, because it's already been looked at through the court and taken care of.
If I were, okay,
I couldn't try him again on something like that.
No, if I would have thought there was a reason that
You
this
know.
could be pursued, I would have pursued it. The
Yeah.
only reason I'm mentioning it is that he used the same technique to get.
To do it after the
To get
fact.
Ida
Do it
Smith's
again.
property, to influence these people to do things that they wouldn't have normally done.
Okay.
I'm sure they thought that they were doing the right thing.
Okay.
And in the year 2000, 2001, a long time ago, I know,
Yeah.
but I lived in Orem, and he did the same thing to me. And he used this undue influence as my, as he was this fake ecclesiastical leader, and had me, pressured me to sign, to put debts in my name that were not mine, and it was, playing on my beliefs and all these religious tests, and he had his own brand of fundamentalism, and in my case it was worse, but he also had me sign, he made me make out a will, and he kept saying, if something happens to you, and so, since that time, I learned about undue influence, which can be used aside from deathbed, but I also learned about mind control and the way these things work, and I just want to tell you that this is a long-standing pattern, and I lost all my money, and, and other things, And because I believed as well. I believed that the tool that he used to deceive me was that he created this false document which authenticated him. And that document was based on something I believed in. It was called the sealed portion of the Book of Mormon. And he had, he claimed he had the Urim and Thummim, and so it was all this criminal simulation. And I only, and just recently, so I lost everything. I was lucky to get away with my life, and I've continued to be sued. To be threatened, and I was...
By who?
By him, when I tell my story, my true story, and, I have some current complaints against him, including what might be considered extortion to keep me silent, and just recently, he comes out publicly, says, I deceived everybody, I deceived you all, I took all your money, it was all a big con. Okay, so I'm just here to validate a long-standing pattern of...
Just the pattern of it.
Right, and the fact that he has no conscience, and the fact that he uses that criminal simulation, I think it's called. They created it for when Mark Hoffman did his thing. It was a new law. He uses that to convince people and he gets authority over them.
Okay.
I prepared a 20-minute video here, if we could watch it, that basically displays him basically confirming that he uses deception and lies to get people to accept him, and he was able to use the same deception and lies to become a CEO in a filter green company. He confirms that. He verifies that he takes people's money, everything they have. So let me just bring this up for you.
solar system, Jesus the Christ. This particular monument, to have the writing on it that it does, makes enormous sense to me. And I have no regrets for what I did and see to it that it was put up. And I know the crowd was unhappy with it. And I know my family wasn't happy with it. But it's truth. It's real truth. And at this point in my life, I really don't want to deal with anything that isn't real truth. If real truth is on the earth, dagnabbit, that's what I want. And so that's where we're at. That's why this is here. That's why this monument is here. And that's why I am here sitting today to tell you about it.
One day, at this gravesite, among descendants of Harold Smith, remains of my client, Christopher Mark Adelphi, will be buried here.
Basically, the same thing happened to me that happened to Joseph Smith. I got on my knees, distraught, crying, not knowing what to think. And I just cried and prayed right there in that room. And sure enough, there appeared a person, a human being that I recognized at the time as Joseph Smith. Off to the side, it was off to my left a little bit, there was a personage that appeared to be like my grandpa. I have access to the advanced human being who lived and incarnate here upon this earth, who lived a life as Joseph Smith. It's that person, and he's lived many other lives too. It's that person that I have access to. Right there in my mind, that's what makes me crazy. So, I think what happened, I can't argue with that. That's exactly what, so what he's trying to say here is that that's my source. My source is the advanced human being, the voice in your head. No? Yeah, well, yeah. Let's say this. Okay. Let's no say questions. No questions. Let's say whatever. Who are they? Who really are they? I'll tell you right now, they're human beings. I didn't hear for these years their vibrations from their voice box. I don't believe a damn thing anybody says. Anything that comes to me. There's no revelation. Neither have I never spoken to Joseph Smith, not one time. So let's get that clear. Okay. So that's a reality that we both agree on. That there's nobody upon the earth today that can speak to Joseph Smith. Absolutely.
As you were employed as a security guard for the church, that in the course of doing your rounds one evening, June 16, 1987, that you found yourself in a, I guess, conversation with what we would recognize as Joseph Smith, or think of Joseph Smith, even though it was an advanced human.
That was a story. Anthony, I don't know if you've been following. That was a story that I told. Same story that I told, that Joseph told about the first vision, seeing the Father and the Son. It was a story that needed to be told. Fabrication. That is. It was a story. Wow.
I'm glad you're admitting that right now, but do you see how that is very disingenuous and dishonest?
I know that we are repeatedly told that knowing something as a human being is a misnomer. You can believe, but a lot of things you can't know. You can't. You can't know because you're humans. But I want to tell you, as far as Christopher is concerned,
else. They find the sealed portion and it takes them out of the church. They're believing in secondary lie, believing that you admitted it yourself, going from one lie to the other lie. What if they die in belief in your lie? What if they die before they learn that you were lying? It doesn't matter.
My name is Rodney J. Vessels. I am Christopher's personal legal counsel. Christopher is not here today to speak for himself. I am authorized to speak and to provide this public statement on his behalf. On this day, June 16th, 1987, Christopher was visited by the resurrected Joseph Smith, who appeared to him, ironically, in the Salt Lake Temple of the LDS Church, in the same room where the quorum of the 12 alleged apostles of the LDS Church meet regularly. Let me repeat, 23 years ago today, Joseph Smith appeared to his brother, his friend, his fellow servant, Hiram, now incarnated as Christopher Nemelka, and commissioned him to finish the work which he could not finish himself in fulfillment of the prophecy which he gave just before his martyrdom. Christopher's name appears alongside the name of Hiram Smith on this headstone because Christopher was Hiram Smith. Well, it seems to be implying here that he got access to Joseph Smith, therefore he's got an inside.
And that's just not true. That's not true. I just want you to know that. You have no access to Joseph Smith. He was killed in June of 1847. Have you ever claimed to have access to Joseph Smith? No access to Joseph Smith. Have you ever, in all of your time, have you ever? Yes, absolutely. It was not true.
I am not reincarnated Hiram. Okay, that's impossible. If Hiram was reincarnated, he'd be Hiram Smith, not Christopher. No. I could see Hiram is Jerusha's first daughter, Rowena. That little girl. I saw certain things, how she would run up to him, what she would do. Were they like first perspective? No, it was in my mind. It was memories. Yeah, memories. I felt like, holy shit, I didn't even know who these kids were. I had no idea.
Mormons have deified Joseph Smith. You've demonized him. I'm right there to show you what really happened. Okay? And you can do it because you've seen it. Of course, he, being an advanced human being, perceived my thoughts. Okay. He reached out and touched my right temple. And at that moment, my entire world changed.
Good, but I think we fundamentally disagree on the historical model surrounding Joseph Smith. Okay, let me ask you. He made it up based on. He made it up. I made it up. It doesn't matter. Okay. He made it up. I made it up. Like you say. Okay, let's put that out there. We can agree on that, right? Yeah. You can call me a liar. You can call me a charlatan. But don't you dare say that my work has been personal. This work. This started in 2004. Don't you dare say that unless you have proof. Well, I'm of the sound, resolute mind that anybody that believes in a lie is a damaging belief. So if somebody believes in your lie, that's a damaging thing. So I believe that you have damaged. Okay, then I'll give you that. There's no money. I'm not like you. I don't do this for money. I have a paycheck for my actual job. I get nothing from this. Not one dime, not one penny.
He got his job from this.
Nothing. You get almost gonna work at least. No, that's right. That's basically what they do, except she's works for the same company I do. They donate their time. And from my paycheck, because I run a company, I'll pay them. Even though I don't want to be paid, I'll pay them. You cannot find one shred of evidence anywhere where I have taken somebody's money. Not one thing. It is, and how I got involved with the thieves a year or so ago. There is no excuse now. Their work, the thieves company finance
what Facebook's all about. And it's important that we set a standard for the internet. It sets understanding where each of us is coming from. Okay? That we tell the truth. Because you're gonna have a copy of this. You can go back and take anything that I say and research it. And if I lied, you got me. I promise you, I will not lie. And I expect the same we do. What was, and we do, would you admit to that later?
say is bullshit. Pretty much. Okay, if you really understood my mind, how it works, I'm crazy. Me and Joseph Smith are crazy. When he was 14 and a half and I was 25 and a half, we both went crazy. I'm glad you're saying it. It's true. It's honest truth. Let me put it this way. You're not supposed to know without a doubt the truthfulness of all these things. You're not supposed to know that. Because none of you do. You say that it sounds good, but there's always those doubts. How do you guys know I'm not deceiving the crap out of you? How do you know I'm just not this charismatic, good-looking guy that's coming here and going to speak well and just deceiving you? How do you know that? Because many people have done it. We've got examples throughout this whole world of these cult leaders that come in and deceive people and completely. Sherry, how do you know that for 10 years you are just nothing but a stooge that I'm utilizing for sex and whatever else I can get out of you? How do you know that I just didn't go to the church dance where I met you with Charlie, that Charlie was my little puppy, just so I could get this good-looking, beautiful lady, so I could deceive her to be with me and support me in my devious plan? How do you know? You don't know. That is beautiful evidence now to show people, whoever wants to know, that it is possible that a guy together books in a word that deceives people and it changes their mindset. Please don't think that I don't see the gleam in your eye. I see how excited you are about this grand plan that you've obviously orchestrated. What the grand plan is really quick to convince people that people can lie and they can believe in a lie. No. I think there's empirical evidence that's not the right way to go, man. I just think that's horribly insidious, and it makes you out to be a charlatan. Good. I'm a charlatan. Okay. You're getting what? That's my testing you. People who listen to this are goddamn glad. The people you see right here, they're very happy. Maybe they should reassess what makes them truly happy.
So yeah, basically after that, basically Ida Smith, if she would have known that information, I guarantee that if I would have been able to present that like I have to all these people that presented what they did, after they got talking to Christopher, I was able to sit down with them and show them the information that he was lying and stuff like that, and they completely turned away. So Ida Smith met me personally on February 1st, 2014, and she was totally convinced, like she described. But how she got giving all of her stuff away, and how it led to Christopher obtaining her power of attorney. So when she passed away on February 22nd, 2015, Christopher contacted me in August 28th, 2016, and he asked me to basically go onto his website and edit his timeline. And in the process of doing that, I discovered that Christopher reported that the family of Ida Smith claimed murder after she died, and that then the police investigated. Well, come to find out, it was standard operating procedure for the police to investigate the death. And so I wrote this from the perspective of why would the Smith family members claim murder on Christopher Nemelka, which basically was a lie. They never did. But because of that, I was able to go back with the police report, and it showed how she went and was sent home from the hospital, and then 2.5 hours later she died. So the question is there something with him getting power of attorney over somebody that's illegal, based on the deceptive means of why he got it?
And her will and transfer of assets.
So didn't he have some sort of incentive? And when the police never received any sort of phone call until after the investigation, isn't there something that he wanted to basically show that the Smith family was against him? And in the process of him going from her being in the hospital, doesn't it seem suspicious that the medicine arrives, he then gets the medicine at 5:30, administers it to her, and then 5:35 she leaves the room, and then 5:40 she's deceased. So that's my story in this 7-page article that shows the suspicious activity Christopher Nemelka went through prior to her decease. And verifying it with the police report now, which I didn't have before, this appears to be perfectly in line with not slanderous or defaming at all. So do you see anything that...
Well, I guess my question first would be, if there's nothing slanderous that you've done, then what's your concern about this lawsuit, if you're gonna win?
Well, I'm just saying that he...
I guess would be my concern.
Well, I don't know.
Or question, not a concern, but my question would
I don't know how you
be,
feel about being sued,
yeah,
but being sued in a frivolous lawsuit is no different than being sued in one it's not. You still get drugged through it. It still
No, I know.
costs you about a month. It's very paralyzing. They're very emotionally damaging. It affects your life and disrupts your life. Why would you want to be sued frivolously? The fact that you can prove that it was a frivolous lawsuit doesn't spare you. You still go through.
no, I understand that,
Okay, so
but,
if he would make a statement, the statement that he was referring to is number 10. It says, further, on February 10th, defendant caused to be published from his email address an email where he accuses plaintiff of being responsible for the death of one Ida Smith. That's one of the statements that inspired Robbie to investigate this case. This investigation is now turning over other things. Not so much that he had the power of attorney under suspicious pretenses or even questionable pretenses, but that he's still continuing to do it to other people. I would like to read you something that Christopher, he has a daily journal on his thing that he wrote 4 days before Ida Smith was dead. She had broken her leg. She'd been in the hospital for 3 days. She died within 8 days of breaking her leg. And this is what he wrote. He says, so it is, he had a big old spiel on his website called The Wars and Rumors of Wars and Murder. It's all good. And I'd like to read this. I just snipped one paragraph out of it. He said, so it is, folks, that our world continues to experience the effects of free will that will never be denied to any of us. Those who murder have just as much right to choose to murder as we do to choose to not to murder. Both choices are the same and carry the same weight in our experiences. Not one of us will ever feel bad about murdering another if in so doing we acted within our own interests and needs. Are you following me? This is what it means to be true to ourselves and to not deny the Holy Ghost, an act that we will eternally regret because we can use our free will and we don't. We negate the very purpose of our existence as humans. Our world is full of murder because the majority of its inhabitants live only to serve themselves and their own needs. The few who cannot look upon murder with any degree of justification are just that, few and far between. Yet here's the irony. The same who would never justify murder for any reason in any situation do so, that is, justify it, as free-willed choice made properly by another. A service-oriented person would actually support the act of murder while never murdering. What a terrible, ironic life it is, right? This lesson is embedded in a very long article that goes to the extent that it's okay to murder. There's really no serious consequence as long as you're being true to yourself and not denying your own conscience. This is the mentality of a murderer, is it not? When a famous murderer by the name of Mark Hoffman decided to kill people, he just said, there's really no consequence. This person could have been a child or a dog, whatever. Life has no value. I would like to read another thing that is the reason why I'm here. Okay? Because I was not a particularly close friend of Ida. I could see she was being duped and she was being happy being duped. And she was in her own world. Okay? But I had been a follower of Nemelka since his whole ruse started in 2004. I was an inner circle member for 4.5 years. We were working to help the poor. There was no lying. There was no place to go to background check anything about his stories, and he offered no evidence whatsoever to support his claims, but it was a good story. I'm a rational person. I can think. When he presented himself as a person who was a mediator for other people who lived on another planet, and that may sound far-fetched to you, but it's not really that far-fetched if you believe that Jesus died and he went some other where. The fact that they had developed a way to communicate with people on earth is not anything outside of anybody's paradigm, and it wasn't outside of mine. I wasn't a Mormon. I wasn't an active Mormon. I had been a Mormon, but I'd not been anywhere near the Mormon church for 15 years. He convinced me that he actually talked to these men, that they talked with once Foxy shook their hand, he knew who they were, that there were immortals on this earth, John the Beloved and the three Nephites. It's just part of Mormon lore. And that they never die. So he was getting mentored. I could see he was a piece of shit. I could see he had a horrible sense of horror, that he was disgusting in a lot of ways. But he said they chose him because he was the weakest, that he was the poorest example. And then that's how we can know that his works were from somebody else and not from his own mind. So you just kind of ignored the red flags, okay? All of his designs were to help the poor, help the poor. We got to get this book written so we can get the word out, so da-da-da-da. And the money came. We were giving him money, and he was writing books. And he staged the thing where these guys want me to write books full time, and so you people have to support me. And we all kind of went, we all work. We have plans. We have books to write. We have projects we're working on. We all have to work. So I didn't give him any money at that time. But he put the pressure on that the beings who were overseeing the work, somewhere in Europe, somewhere around, they're tending to the Middle East conflict and who knows what all else. And he convinced me through his teachings of an afterlife, which included reincarnation, which is a believable concept. In my mind, it's very believable that you could die and you could actually be born into another body. And he had other people convinced that I was somebody prominent from a past life, and that using the leverage of that was able to impress upon everyone's mind that I was here for a super purpose, and that purpose was to translate his seal portion into Spanish. I could speak Spanish. I'd been a translator, and I tell him I'm not prepared for this. English is my native tongue. If you want to translate something into another language, you get a person whose native tongue is that. They read the English, what they can understand of it, and they put it in the language that their people can understand. And I says, don't worry. 3 Nephites will be around to help you. Okay, when? Don't you worry. One day you'll look up, they'll tap you on the shoulder. And you'll know. You'll know that I'm not lying about anything. That's how they approach me. And I go, okay, so I'd go back to my task, and for 2 years, I worked on translating that book at some huge sacrifice to my family, to myself, because I'm self-employed, but I would deprioritize my things, and when problems would come up, I'd just say, hire it done. Money just going, my wife, everybody going, I said, this is important. When I get done with this one thing, he just impressed upon our minds, and I have that documentation, the correspondence between him and him assuring me that this was all legitimate. And at one time I ran into problems with the translation, okay? It wasn't exactly consistent. So I would bring these things up to him, and he'd go look in his room and tell me, he'd come back with a solution, and I'd go, okay. But I got to the point where I go, look, I don't know. I said, why can't I get any help? Why can't I get a reader? Why can't I get one of the 3 Nephites? Why isn't somebody being prepared to help me in this thing? And one day he was having a meeting in Boise, and I live on this end of Idaho, and I traveled to Boise because I knew he was going to be at that meeting, and I sidelined him, and I said, look, I'm coming apart here. I said, everything is hinging on this. You got to level with me, man. Is this bullshit? Harry, I only wish it was a lie. I wish I was telling a lie. And I go, well, you have got to talk to those guys. They have got to help me on this. You got to use the Urim and Thummim. to translate it into English. Why can't I? Why can't you use it to translate it into Spanish? I said, this is, and finally I went back, and every time he did that, I'd get renewed faith. I'd travel back to my house. I go, I guess we just carry on until somebody taps us on the shoulder. And in the process of all this, his teachings started to include in reincarnation that when you die, it's not a big deal. You don't really die. You just transition. And my wife and my family and I, as well as everybody in the group, understands that. And we understand it perfectly. When my father died in 2008, I went to the funeral and I looked at all these boobing people and I said, if you only knew the truth, we're not really dead. Dad's probably already born in another body in Egypt somewhere or something, you know, and I just didn't feel any human suffering. I just was not able to identify with anybody. People were getting up there and falling apart, like I'm falling apart. And I was just rolling my eyes and going, whatever, right? When it came to a point when I finally decided that he was lying, that his story was never going to add up, I thought that I still believed that he was being mentored by someone, because he would produce these books, like full chapters of hardly any discrepancy. I mean, they flowed. You're like going, nobody can do this. He would just, here's a couple chapters or a chapter, edit it, see if it makes any sense to you. I got this from John the Beloved, right? And we were just going, whoa, that's heavy, you know, and that's a great idea. I never thought about that. Just on book after book, day after day. I never realized I would have no idea to know that he was just cut and pasting something that he'd been working on for years and giving it to us as if he was getting it in the closet that night, you know, on some telecommunication with another planet with these goddamn rocks, right? And so we were hooked into believing that he was being supported by other people, even though he was a questionable sort. He, when I left the group, normally what he did, and the whole time I was there, I was the only one he never kicked out of the group. I was the only one he referred to as a co-servant or a fellow servant. He considered everybody else, he was their servant. But he was the only one that I was the only one he didn't serve, and he didn't serve me and I didn't serve him, because I was this sounding board for him. I had a rational brain, and when he would teach a thought, I would refine it. I would correct it. It was me. He said many times, where would we be without Harry? I'm helping him polish his seal portion. I'm taking out the inconsistency, is making it infallible, so that when new people read it, they think it came that way right through the Urim and Thummim. You follow me? In the teaching, when he left, when we had he published a book that was just bullshit. I said, this is just so much bullshit. And he said, you're out. You're out of the group. And I was like, it would be like in a hierarchy of a church, a counselor to the leaders of the LDS church, the prophet saying to elder, second counselor, you're gone. Or first counselor, you're gone. Excommunicated, out of the church. And I'm like, God, he said, unless you bow down, beg forgiveness, all of the things. And I said, you? I'll take my chances with the door, right? And we left. And I didn't know that he had his hooks in me. I didn't know he was inside my head. Because as soon as I refused to do what everyone else did, time and time again, which was, oh, please, let me back in, you know. I don't want to be on the outside of this. He said, you see, folks, that's why the brethren never went and saw Harry. Because Harry, they knew all along that he was a rebellious spirit and he would never, ever follow another person. And so he's never going to be involved in this work. He's never going to be, he's just going to roam the world unhappy and stuff. And it bothered me. It bothered me that the brethren would know all of my hard work and all of my care for detail and getting things right, and that they would not, that somehow my eternal soul was black, and that I was never going to be anything. And so I fucked up, okay? I knew I could not bow down to him, and I said, he's right. They got me. They knew all along I was never going to bend, right? And so we had been taught. life is a test, whatever. You can reset. You just reset. You just exit, and you start over, and you try the best you can next time around. And when I explained to my wife and my kids, who were all in their old teens, what had happened, I says, dude, the jig is up. This whole thing was to show that I won't bend. He says, I could have had that translated easy with the urim and thummim easily. This was all for Harry to show you that he will never bow down to another individual, or to the overseers of this work. And they knew it from the beginning. They tried to tell me don't include Harry in any of this stuff, but I argued that he was a good man, and then I turned out I was wrong. And all of my friends, talking 50 people who I've been working shoulder to shoulder with for years, instant shun. Instant, wow, and you think you know a guy. No return phone calls. No, I mean, it's like, I'm out there and I go, well, fine, we don't need this thing. 2 days out, he wrote that post about my character, or my soul personality, or whatever you want to call it, my essence. And I just knew, now, that's what I am, right? And so we talked about me transitioning. One of the I remember my son come pick, I called my wife and she goes, oh, suck. Oh, well, that's, no, you can, we still need you around to do other things. I said, well, what's the point? Really? What's the point? And that I was able to convince her that it was like the practical thing. I mean, we're taught that you don't have to worry about your kids, the village raises the kids, and nobody's family is important. We're all brothers and sisters anyway. That's not really your wife. It's not really your son. It's just another brother, And you're really wrong to have strong affections for your kids over the poor starving kids in Africa. So all of these lessons were in our mind, and this was the thing that is in the minds of the people who are in that cult right now. They have this rigid conception of the next reality, and making the transition is nothing. Nothing. We talked about it. We had this teaching that he had a teaching that when you die, you can visit another person and communicate with a person through dreams. We kind of coined the phrase D-mails, right, instead of emails. And my sons was going, okay, when you get to the side, send us a D-mail about this, right? Because we'll be ready, we'll prime ourselves, we'll eat vitamin B, whatever it is to get yourself receptive to this visit, right? And we were like going, okay, we can do this, Daddy, because this would be great. We can just bypass this piece of shit, and get the mysteries of the universe anyway, whatever it is. Nobody's ever come back from the other side of the death barrier, right? That we know. So we're talking practically like this, into the night, way into the night. I have a farm, I have livestock, I have responsibilities, I have a trucking company, I got employees. We're talking late, I'm making the final arrangements, and then I'm going to hit the switch, right? I fall asleep. We all fell asleep. Just got too tired, mumbling, grumbling, and fell asleep. I woke up the next morning to the phone call. Got problems got to address. I got past the immediate urgency to exit. And then just in my mind, my wife kind of said, well, if you're going to go, you don't have to go today. It's not like you're a kamikaze pilot and you don't have any landing gear. You can just delay this, right? Yeah. And then a few more days, I started thinking, what the hell? I have a 14-year-old daughter and an 8-year-old son, and they need me in school, and they need me in their life, and I may be a piece of shit in the attorneys, but I'm still their dad. So I said I could probably stick around a while, and I had all of he wanted the translation that I had done shipped back to him, and the computer that he gave me to do the translation with. And I just kind of bowled up and I said, wait a minute, why don't you just kiss my ass? You're not getting your computer back and you're not getting any of this stuff. And I just tried to walk. I just kind of went, I'm going to just live the rest of my life, right? But he don't stop. He comes after me, he comes after me, he comes after me. He don't stop publishing negative things about me. He's digging up stuff he's making up stuff and putting on the internet. And I'm going, dude, you're so fucked up. None of that is true. Oh, yes, it is. I looked in the urim and thummim and it's true. I want to read one other thing to you that he wrote. also just this year about that. This was in February, I think February. He starts out at one of his big, long blathering posts. He says, Robbie published this on the internet, included me in a group email, and it was the first thing I saw. Robbie and I were not friends. Christine and I were not friends. We have tried to separate ourselves from this nightmare. Christopher writes,
A few people, after finding this work and contemplating it, have committed suicide. These same people, more likely than not, wouldn't have killed themselves if they hadn't found and contemplated the real truth about our existence as presented in this work. Yes, they made the free will choice, but they would have never been presented with this same choice without gaining a perception of their own mortality that is unique to this work. It is truthful when one opines that this work was indirectly responsible for their suicide. Others have basically gone crazy. Where these were once seemingly normal and productive members of society, while they embraced a standard religion that structured and brought value to their daily life, this work is indirectly responsible for their inability to deal with mortal life now. These suicidal and crazy ones provide great evidence for the overall purpose of this work, and that it was never meant for us to know the real truth. Yep, it's my role to introduce people to things that they were never meant to understand. So I sent that because soon after Ida Smith died, an individual named John Jordan, who lived in Georgia, who followed Christopher and Melka's teaching, on his birthday, just a month or so, and I'll have to look up the information,
he died May 9th.
May 9th,
March 9th.
March 9th, he committed suicide because of this. And there was an individual named Barry Knutson, who lives in Missouri, who recently attempted suicide. And the last thing he thought to himself was, oh, try to stop this, because he was thinking about his advanced, they think of advanced cells that transition. So there's a situation where people contemplate and then accept suicide. And so all of this ties in to Ida Smith in the sense that when Christopher Nemelka, a couple of days before she died, writes information about that it's no big deal for murder, it's not, if it benefits you, it's okay, that suicide, that's not a big deal. And so when she was in a rehabilitation center, my question was, why did she get checked out of a rehabilitation center and sent back to the hospital? And I specifically asked that question to Christopher Nemelka, and he specifically said he left out that part for his enemies because he was trying to create this suspicion, is how I interpreted that. Then he posts on the internet that Ida Smith's family basically stated that, claimed murder about him. So all of these lies led me to write a story basically holding Christopher responsible for the death of Ida Smith. So based on the police report, and are you Thomas?
Sorry.
After the investigation was completely finished, was that around 8 o'clock at night?
Yeah.
It was, we cleared, I've got us completed at 1900.
So she passed away at 5:40, and you arrived at what time?
5:53.
And you completed the investigation and was finished at what time?
7:01 is when we left.
Now, when you left, you had a voicemail message from an individual. Was it a male?
It was. So actually, it wasn't a voicemail message. It was a. So you have a full report?
Yes,
I don't know what it all comes with, but
yes, I have the full report.
so it comes with basically the notes from our
Yeah,
dispatch, and it says a Dennis Smith, but when I called, he said his name was Bruce, is what I wrote down.
Bruce Smith, okay.
Bruce Smith.
And I checked with all the family members and they said there was no Bruce Smith.
So yeah, brother of Ida, Dennis, wants to know more details, so I gave him a call,
So Dennis Smith.
and it was a Dennis Smith. And I know when I looked up her obituary days later, there was a Dennis Smith.
Right, there is a Dennis Smith. I didn't actually contact him, so that could be plausible.
Yeah, so it was a Dennis that called in, and I mean, there's a phone number there. I haven't ran it.
So the question is, when you received that, did you run back into the house and say, Christopher Nemelka, this is guy that called in?
Nope, I did it off of my car.
Because the next morning, he reported exactly verbatim in your report that there was suspicious activity. So how would Christopher Nemelka know that a member of the Ida Smith family left a voicemail for you?
I mean, he could've came in and got I mean, my report was done that night. And Officer McCown's probably as well. So, I mean, he's just like, he could come in the morning and pay for a report and get all the information.
So is there evidence that he ever did that? There would be any?
Did you say Bruce? Were you saying Bruce?
So I said
Because you
Dennis,
said
and
Dennis,
and
but
think
Bruce
he-
Chamberlain
yeah,
was the doctor.
and maybe I got it mixed up, but I can't remember. I know it was, I called Dennis and he corrected me or something.
Yeah, so the notes on there, I'm like, on the dispatch notes, it says that it was,
Or Thomas, I got a phone call the morning that she died from a guy named Ira Jagan, and he was in the home of Ruth Smith. He might have called on behalf of Ruth Smith, and just, it was just Ira Jagan's voice, because nobody can identify, nobody from the Smith family seems to know who would have made that phone call, and I thought maybe it might have been Ira
Do you
Jagan.
have a copy of it?
I don't have, I try to get hold of Ira, but I don't know, he seems like he's,
And I mean, from
Ira
what I
passed away.
remember from the phone call, it was pretty basic, like,
Did you ever contact the place where she was, the rehabilitation center?
we contacted the doctor who put her on hospice, and that's, so our standard protocol is when someone passes away from hospice care, we call the doctor who they're under the care of, and that doctor says, yeah, we'll sign the
death certificate.
death certificate, and that's it. And if we don't see anything suspicious, which we didn't,
Well, where does malnutrition come in? Because her sister said that, said that malnutrition was involved, that she was malnourished or something.
no
Did she
idea,
have an autopsy?
no.
not from us.
Because where a doctor signs, they don't.
They don't do
the
one.
medical examiners, unless there's something suspicious that we see. I mean, did she look elderly? Yeah. Did she look frail?
Right,
I mean, she's been in the hospital, so I can't
right.
say she's malnutrition or not.
And to say she was malnutrition, she came from the hospital or
From,
whatever.
Yeah, I just-
from what I remember from talking with Chris Nemelka is she had brittle bones and wasn't recovering.
Right, you're talking to a person who does not want her to recover though, right?
Well,
But you wouldn't have known
No.
that.
I wouldn't know that, yeah.
And most people who have a power of attorney, they understand that their person gave the power of attorney to that person because they trusted them more than anybody on the earth. And so we, even though we saw it as suspicious, it's veiled in religious belief, and people are gonna die sooner or later anyway. She was of poor health. But the point that brings this all to attention is the fraud that he used to obtain the power of attorney that enabled him. If you were to interview Pauline, his
Changed her
sister,
will.
very heartbreaking story there of how they never even knew she was in the hospital till she was beyond the point of recovery. And that they knew that she was going to take him from the hospital because Christopher had the power of attorney and it was in his best interest that she not live. That's all. They know that. You can't do anything about it.
And so my question is, what was he to gain by doing that?
He got her entire estate, which was $1 million. Just happen to have an eyewitness here. I hope he can tell you. After her memorial, which was, if you were to watch her full memorial, he basically took over her life and said her whole life was for this work. He took her 83 years and said, it's all about these books. Read these books. all about me. I wrote this, I wrote that. She loved these things. Here, if you want her to read these books that I wrote. He just took over her whole life, made it into his own propaganda. He paid it $300 on all 3 newspapers to have her video put up permanently so that people, whenever they clicked on a thing, they go to the Marvelous Work and Wonder. He's got the headstone video, he's got all that. But she didn't know. She just was a believer, just a simple believer, right? And he knew that if he told her that she could talk to Hiram, her brother, or Dennis, and he sued Hiram and Dennis to try and break up that relationship. I have a list here of the lawsuits that Christopher has filed against people, and I brought it because I didn't know if you were going to allow us to record this, and I wanted to show you that you're in line to be sued just because you bring up his name. You don't have to say anything negative. He'll just make up something. There's a list here of the lawsuits that he's filed against people, and there's the first one, Salt Lake City Police Department, Officer Philip Elsinger, individual, Officers John and Jane Doe's 1 through 10. You get the picture? Every one of these lawsuits are published.
And where have they gone? Have they gone nowhere?
They were thrown out, but not after, not without some
Yeah.
difficulty.
Yeah.
Hiram and Dennis Smith were both sued because they sent emails to Ida telling her that this guy's a con artist and he's taking you for everything you got. And he said, that's my work is important and these people need to be sued. Their case was thrown out with prejudice, right? So, but does that stop him from suing people? He sued Robbie. Okay, I gotta introduce Robbie. He's autistic. He's a little autistic boy who grew up, and he's just an autistic grown up. He needs to have things be consistent in the realm that you deliver them to. And I says, his problem with Christopher Nemilka is that Christopher kept changing the story. And when you give people building blocks, especially people who take them to heart, and they build a nice little wall, and then you want to go back and you want to take one out. For someone who's OCD or who's autistic, you can't handle it. So you just want to get that to fit. And he kept going back to Christopher, but you said over here, and then I talked to Christine, and then I talked to Harry, and then I talked to Kyle Williams, and then I talked to these other people, and your story's not fitting with anything. And Christopher just refused to make it fit. He finally volunteered to become Christopher's personal biographer. He said, I'll explain it all. He filmed Christopher 30 videos, or 9 videos, and he made them into 30, showing different things where Christopher contradicts himself. So immediately he gets fired as the biographer, and he demands all those videos back. That is why he's suing Robbie Pace, because Robbie Pace doesn't have the videos. He gave them to somebody else.
Now, I just wanted to cover a few things. If somebody reports that the Smith family claimed murder, is that a problem? If Christopher Nemilka on his website, February 22nd, Ida Smith dies, Smith family claimed murder, police investigate, is that something
I mean,
that...
people put stuff on the internet that's, they didn't claim it to us, so.
So it's basically just another of the billion lies. But point I wanted to drive home is that it's just been since April, March 4th and April of this year that he's come out and said, I made it all up. I've been to police. I've been to the Office of the Protecting the Elderly about Ida, that he's running a con. I can prove he's running a con. I can tell you that he's stealing her shit. And they said, she's happy, she's healthy, we can't interfere. It's a belief. She's protected by the eminent domain, or the forbidden domain. It's civil. If she's not complaining, we'll check on her and make sure she's got enough bottled water or whatever. But we're not going to go in there and tell her that she's being conned. Okay? People are happy in their cons. And I was going, well, that really sucks. And they're going, well, that's the way it is. So for this amount of years, I have been exposing him in other ways. I have a website on the internet that has his own name on it called chrisnemelka.com. It was not founded by me because I'm not that kind of a guy, not computer literate.
Techie, yeah.
But the people who founded it, the 2 people who set it up, were not even, 2 of them were retired police officers from Salt Lake. And they organized this thing, and they started putting up stuff that they knew from their investigations to try to make increase public awareness. They invited me to participate on the forum, and I did. Over a period of years, long about 2014, one of the officers was confined to his home. He's elderly, and the other one had a series of heart attacks. And his wife said, "No more Christopher Nemelka. Your heart gets too fucked up." So they called me and asked me if I would take over the reins, and I said, "I have no problem with it." So we did something, and it put it in my name, but I actually don't know when that was or how we did it. So now I'm the owner of the site, and he's suing me in Idaho.
Because you're the owner of the
Because I'm the
on
one
the
he wants
site.
the site down, right? And we've had pleadings. Please show us anything on the site that's malicious or erroneous. Anything. It's all court documents. It's all just logging his failure, and it's just negative, and he doesn't want it out there. He says it's slander and it's ruined the family name, and I go, I hope so, right? It's you that's ruining your family name, not me, right? So anyway, I took the site down voluntarily in July when I was sued the first time with her. We were both sued, and her daughter, who is an actress, a modern singing actress with a career, he sued me, her, and her daughter for $10 million on the most frivolous thing. The attorneys in town here roll their eyes, hit the delete button, and it's dismissed, right? But he took the exact same court case, dropped her name and her daughter's name off, and sued me in Idaho. And I looked at it and I go, this is never going to end. It's never going to end. 20 days to respond. Back and forth. His motion, that motion. Drag me out. Meanwhile, the site has to be down. Meanwhile, anything I say derogatory about him, all he has to say is, we're in litigation. It's
Now, what
very,
about-
very...
He said, he sent me a threatening letter that after he sued, after this, he said, if you do not respond to, if you do not settle with me, this millions of dollars, then I will file criminal charges against you. That was last year. And so
Do I have that? Did you send me a copy of that? If I would have it with me if you sent it. If that's the one you're talking about.
Probably. And I've been trying to get a restraining order against him because this is what he does. He doesn't let his prior victims go. And my story, I don't want to get into because I'll be worse than him. But I just want to say this. This man
Tears.
damages people. This man damages lives. I almost took my life. I made attempts too. And for me to hear that thing today, and of course he took my body, he might try to take my kids. I have a lot of things. But he, there are other stories. There's just too many to tell you. But this, he knowingly uses his power, the abuse of power over a person's belief, undue influence. And there I have, I can provide case studies where, case law where undue influence is used outside of, wills. But that, he abuses the power over people and uses his undue influences to financially benefit himself through deception, through psychological, causing emotional distress, intentional infliction of emotional distress. He is a walking mastermind of how to cause human pain. He's a con artist.
So I brought up the one question in my report here, that Christopher Nemelka, during a video interview, he confessed he considered Ida Smith a burden to him. So this attitude should be analyzed and asking ourselves if he did everything within his power of attorney to end her life or save her life. So in your estimation, now that you've heard this, did he do everything within his power of attorney to end her life or save her life?
I have no idea on that.
Well,
He
when-
was
well,
doing scary duty.
Well, we come in contact.
We get the
it's
call after the fact. We're going
hospice
in.
care, we confirm hospice care, we confirm medication,
Talk to doctor.
talk to doctor.
Did the medication that he took, did that have any influence on?
So, they give medications to make people feel comfortable.
Yeah.
Because
what
one of the things I
hospice-
noticed in your report is when the individual contacted you, you mentioned that Christopher Nemelka wasn't even in the room
Yeah.
when she passed away.
Well, that's what he told us, so.
But
we
when
were there, so.
he went in, when he got the medication and administered it to her, and then 5 minutes later, I mean, then he left the
Then
room,
he
and 5
left.
minutes later she was
So
deceased.
I can't remember what he said about if he gave the medication or the two people that were there.
Yeah.
I can't remember what was said.
And is the
Yeah.
medication that he provided, is that something that sped up? Or
Real
does he?
quick, you guys continue deliberating, I have.
Yeah, you're good.
something
Are
further.
you gonna be around later?
Yeah, but I have, a question, and that is, since he just revealed it all publicly, that it's all a deception, is there any way I could file a fraud complaint?
And it's like, so, I mean, this case, it sounds like and I just came in at an hour
I
late,
have
but
documentation still
but
for
I'm
over
guessing that
5,000.
that it encompasses people from all over the country, from all over the state. I mean, the Attorney General's office is probably gonna be your best bet. They have a fraud division, that's all they do.
We would like it, if you need to refer this case to somebody who's got more resources.
Which would be the Attorney General's
Okay.
office, and that's probably who, I mean, with us, we're pretty small time, and
Right.
it would be anything that happened here.
What kind of cases does the
Nice
county
to
attorney
meet you.
have? Okay, hey.
You need
Get
to-
you, I'll walk you to where that door is so you don't get it.
The county attorney, I mean, they can do those cases too, but where this, it sounds like this spans Salt Lake County.
Multiple areas, jurisdictions. Come out this way. Did you want another water to take with you? You good?
Oh, I'd like that.
Yeah, you can just take that extra one
Any fraud
if you need to.
Will you ever find this? Burn some calories.
Yeah, once we get down there, they can probably get back and talk to you about it, like he was saying, with the way this is multi-jurisdictional, it might be a Utah County attorney, like a attorney general.
You know what, there's a lot of stories he didn't tell.
So-
Other people have mysteriously died.
Yeah,
And after my experience, I said to my, after my experience, I said to people, someday they're gonna find out he's a serial killer. Because I, just my hunch,
Okay.
based on my.
okay, be careful, thank you.
Hey, how are you doing?
Good, how you doing?
You'd be a lot happier there than you are here, you know, it's like, you look at people. He didn't care about Ida, he doesn't care about any of the people around him. His wife, 12 years, he's talking to in that thing, he divorced in December. He makes $1,000 a day, she got nothing. No alimony, nothing. $1,000 a day if you can't keep your ex-wife who's been through you with thick and thin, even if, I mean, she's just a ditch, she's nothing sinister, right? And I go, this guy has the same abnormality in his brain that Mark Hoffman had. To sit there during that whole trial, that whole year-long trial, and know that he'd done those things, and watch them try to struggle over trying to catch him, like it was some kind of a game. His book coming out at the end of the year is called The Mortal Game of Life. And in there, it teaches you about the transition, that it's okay. And the target audience is the virtual life audience that is the internet today and the youth of today. As soon as they have it in their mind that life is just a video game, that you don't really die when you die, you don't really kill when you kill. These are all the messages that you're getting right here before. And if you can't do something about it, then I don't have anything else to say to anyone. I'll get through my lawsuit. I'm gonna leave you with the thing that my attorney requested me to fill in the answers regarding fraud. Because she thinks that this may be needed to hand over to the prosecutor in my own county. Because if my own county prosecutor is aware of this guy because he called up there trying to get me arrested for something, couldn't do it, and then he implicated them. He said that they were on board with it, that they were going to pursue it, which was a lie, and it offended them. They said, this guy's a dirtbag. Come to Idaho, one step, we'll have a little visit downtown, right? Because I've given him this same information about the properties. His whether or not it's prosecutable is beside the point. The fact is, it's the type. He would do these things. He's gained all of these properties and all his money through a lie. And why wouldn't he say that it's a roaring success? Why wouldn't he say it's the best way to go, right? He says he's never damaged anybody. I have. countless of stories of people whose homes were ruined and divorces and getting in people's eyes that they could cheat on their wives. It's not a big deal. And then it wrecks the continuity and the sentimentality of a relationship. He takes no responsibility for that. Christine, who was here, is one of those people who he just kept pushing, pushed her off the edge and then laughed. And she just didn't die. And I'm this guy, I'm going, when I see him grooming these people, new people, I can't handle it. I can't handle watching it. I can't listen to this voice on that recording telling people the same things that he said. I was in the room on some of those videos. I was there, absorbing it the same as anybody else. And he was playing like, whoa, sure, why can't you think I'm a fraud? Yeah? Well then why hasn't anybody caught me? Obviously, I can outmaneuver anybody there is. I can out-talk anyone. I can confound every policeman, anything. Nobody's got it on me. But he stepped out of the umbrella of forbidden domain of religion when he said, I made it all up. He used a ruse of religion to get to people. He's an atheist. He's a non-believer. He's actually not even a human. And he just takes people for all he can get, and then he just spits them out when he's done with them. Like Ida. Oh, she's in a goddamn coma, and he's got to give her painkiller? Come on. Where's the reach? You know? He had the right to kill her. He had the right to euthanize her. He got that from her. And he got it from me. He got it from all of us. I didn't have any property to turn over to, but other people did. He has that. He had that storyline. You know, and I can't expect to download this or that computer full of shit or this thing full of all of the documentation that maps how he did like Mark Hoffman. I keep comparing him to him, and this is why. He was a security guard in Salt Lake City the day Mark Hoffman blew himself up in the car bomb 100 yards away. He heard the bomb. He was there. He was having a faith crisis at the time, and he began to look into it. And when the book came out, Salamander Letter in 1988, he was no longer a security guard. He read that book. And in that book, the church asked Mark Hoffman if they could get him the seal portion. The lost 116 pages of manuscript of Martin Harris. He'd heard it was there. While they were giving Mark Hoffman $185,000 for the McClellan papers, which they never got, he was asking, hey, by the way, if you can find those, we'll take those too. $185,000, and Christopher in his mind goes, hey, probably more than that. Right?
So is it
So
illegal to take people's things and then confess that you take some?
I mean,
He's
fraud is you basically say something to exercise control over someone's things for.
I got one other thing. I'll leave it to you.
Depriving.
I'd have to read the code, but.
I don't know how hard it is. My attorney seemed to say that he says fraud is harder to prove.
And that's a communications fraud.
Communications fraud's kind of a catch-all.
That's kind of the disorderly conduct in a fraud situation.
Okay, and so what we have here is
It's a catch-all.
Obviously, any communication I got
Well,
from him or
I
she
mean,
did.
And it's not,
I guess it's up to an attorney's interpretation of exactly, okay, does it fit this, does it fit that? It may fit this to one attorney,
Right.
it's all interpretation
arguable,
of the
right?
law, yeah.
Okay. As long I would just bring that up because to me this actually says the language that I think. It says any person who has devised any scheme or artifice to defraud another in order to obtain another money, property, or anything of value. I mean,
So,
Yeah.
What do you think of the memorial up there in the Salt Lake City Cemetery that he was able to gather from Ida Smith?
you mean the headstone
Yeah.
thing?
he's got the burial plot, yeah.
uh,
He just obtained, well, it's no different than anything he
I mean,
obtained from Ida.
me looking at this from the outside in is the hard part of getting people to come in and say, yep, this is what happened, and then have a jury, and it's
Okay.
it's gonna be a hard case to prosecute. Could they do it?
I disagree. I think we have him mapped. We have him. We have motive. We've got him evolving into what he is now. That's how carefully we got him documented. And all we need is somebody to file a complaint.
And
He
the-
says in 1998 he made it all up to deceive people, and then he comes out in 2005 and actually executes
He
what
enacts
said.
it. He activates
And
his
then he
own.
does it from 2005, and then he gets Ida Smith stuff, power of attorney, burial plot, all of her things in 2010. And then going forward, she dies in 2014. The lie is still going all the way till she dies. And then he comes out and announces March and April, December 2016, March and April of 2017. Basically confessing that he deceived everybody and telling everybody I got this company to give me all this position based on this lie. So is it just an unethical thing or a legal thing?
I think you're a mixture of both in some ways.
Yeah.
I mean, to be
Well,
honest with you, I think you do have a gray area in some ways. I think
LDS
there's,
faith around here is huge. Do
Sure.
bishops use their position to defraud people of money all the time?
I think they can be accused of it,
People
yeah.
get prosecuted for it.
But here's the difference. A bishop actually believes. He actually believes because other people told him. Nobody ever come down and said, okay, go place that thing. I made that up. Because, just to get you out of Catholicism. Yeah? It was a great story. You got to hand it to me. I tied that Bennett thing on there, and then the stripling warrior thing, and all of the things that are in there, that was great, right? That was a lot more exciting than that ancient old book over there that who even knows what it means, right? But the bottom line here is this is a progressive serial con artist. You can see he's moving on now to the Humanity Party. He's going to distance himself if he can from religion. He's going to take people's money, get himself some power. And all of that is legal too. You can start your own political party if you want to. But but this story, this particular deception is right now reverberating through the internet community as we speak. And Stephen Dark, who is the reporter who helped promote Ida Smith through the City Weekly paper, is keen on this interview. This Satchela stuff is for him. He wants to wants to follow up story, and he's going to be asking pressing questions, and that I can answer.
to you or to him? I didn't get, you were saying,
He won't be asking Christopher
Okay.
anything because Christopher lies. He'll say what he has to say in any given instance to get past that argument. He's psychopathic in that way, and so it doesn't matter that he just said something. He told these young millennial kids that they're the first critics that's ever confronted him, and I'm like going, hello, what are we?
Yeah.
What are we?
Yeah.
There's thousands, and you're saying nope, you're the first.
one
and
thing
just
that,
blindly
one
making.
thing that I had a question about, if somebody goes to somebody, and let's say they're heterosexual, and there's this person that's changes their appearance and appears to be a woman, and they're actually a man, and they go out and they find somebody that's a heterosexual and convinces them that they're a woman when they're a man, and then ends up having sex with them,
That would probably be oral sex.
and then ends up having,
Just say it.
and then at the end of everything, says to them, hey, I was actually
A guy.
a guy, and you were actually a homosexual all along, I just needed to show you that. Where he's saying, Christopher Nemelka is saying, hey, I'm going to take you away with this lie because I'm convinced religion is bad, so let me lie to you intentionally, not like a bishop or somebody that believes. Let me deceive you, pull you away, get undue influence over you, have you give me everything, and then I'll come out and tell everybody, oh, I just did it
for fun.
show you.
Just to help you
And then
help you
the
relieve your
police would go-
oppressive sexuality.
Then the police gets involved and says, I guess that's okay. I can't do anything. And so he's gotten away with it. And that would be a great story to then show the City Weekly article that the Orem City Police Department did absolutely nothing and just took the information.
Well, I don't think it's that you can't do something. It's just what to do. You have.
And the issues
protocol.
come, and issues come into who can,
Well, and,
because you've got multiple areas
yeah,
across
I mean,
the state.
where do all these people live? Do they live in Orem?
Mostly in
Do they live in Utah County?
Valley.
Do they live
They
in
live-
Salt Lake County? Do they live in,
Yeah,
north?
some
Do they
live in
south?
Idaho,
So
Arizona.
where it encompasses the whole state, I mean, can we prosecute stuff from other places? It's not, our county attorney is usually like, cause I used to work narcotics, and we'd have stuff that goes up in Salt Lake, and we can't,
Right. I
even
get
though we
that.
work for Orem, we can't prosecute stuff down here,
Right. I
even
get
if we
that.
can tie it down here, so.
I think we've accomplished what we wanted to do, and that is get the word out that right across the street, 2 blocks down, you've got a predator. He's not like what you'd call a sexual predator. He's not after the sex, he's after
the
glory. And it's his predation is more like that of a spider that weaves this very fantastic web, and he just sees who gets caught in it. And then he troops out, there's Ida Smith, he troops out to her, sucks every bit of blood out of her, and then chunk.
He
Discards
fired,
it.
I know what you're saying.
Okay, so your task, right? We are going to be very anxious to see if anything can be prosecuted, if he can be stopped in some way.
You've got all the information right there?
Not everything. I mean, I'd say if you guys got stuff to give us, I'd email us everything. I've got the stuff they give us here.
We can easily overwhelm
Yeah.
you. What we want to do is just make sure that we're answering the questions that you have.
I mean, I think it's gonna take me contacting someone
need to
that
talk
has
to
more
someone.
resources than me.
Yes, we get
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
you know. We understand that perfectly, but what we don't want to hear, and we'll never want to hear, is that you can't do anything. Because the philosophy of the religion, of the ideology, or the ideology, I don't know how you pronounce it exactly, that life is a game, that, you know, nothing is real. You can lie, you can cheat, you can steal, you can do whatever. If you don't get caught, that's cool. You just do what you want to do. And this has a very catchy theme to it. My son's 15. He's one of those guys that's Assassin's Creed. You know, chop, rob him, get more ammo, get more energy.
Yeah.
And then to the next thing, no conscience whatsoever about killing anything. And I can see how at some crises in their life, where they don't have the maturity to make an adult decision, they just either kill somebody and then themselves, or they just kill somebody and then they go, what?
Yeah.
What?
I do it all the
The
time.
defense attorney could come right around and say, hey, he was conditioned. He's a conditioned killer.
They've actually tried.
So we've got, yeah, so then you're talking about a guy who knowingly is promoting a concept that endangers, that's public endangerment, that the youth of tomorrow and the youth of 100 years from now, if they catch on to this idea, and it's not saying that this is the only way that they could get to this conclusion, but if their parents committed suicide, there's a person living in that compound that's a 13-year-old homeschooled urchin, and his brain, he's just a parrot. He's a parrot of his parents. And whatever they say, he says. And you know, it's attitude. It's like they're untouchable. You can't talk to any of these people and reason with them. None of them are reasonable people anymore. They all go, thanks for stopping by. We got this, you know. I hope you find peace in your life, because I have. And what I'm doing now, that solves all the problems in the world. I actually don't have to worry about the war, the hail, the pollution, nothing. I don't have to worry about any of that. You're all tight about it, you know. You know, we're hell yeah, whatever, right? And so my wife and I noticed that what it comes down to is they've made these people indifferent to the real problems on this earth, apathetic in every sense. Somebody's getting abused, Christopher abuses people right in front of him, and they just go, well, it's probably some sort of a test for him. Christopher's probably doing him a big favor. He'll come back later and thank him. So why even get involved? Why say anything? Why jump in and say right is right? He recently totally humiliated a guy who in 35 years ago had thought that he had tendencies, or homosexual tendencies, and he had touched his children improperly, and he went to the authorities and he confessed, and they put him through counseling, and they determined that he was not that. But Christopher published that he molested his 2 boys. And he goes, that's not exactly true. And he goes, well, prove it. Prove it. I say it's true. You don't deny it. You say it's not exactly true. So
What is true?
the element of doubt is right there. You're clouded in it, and you're and he says, I have to do this to you, you understand, to destroy your credibility, because you're trying to undermine my work. Attacking a person because of something that happened 35 years ago is not without his reach. And this lady that was sitting here, brutally brutally victimized her in 2001. She's got the scars. She's packing a lot of baggage. And he just, this 2 months ago, he's on the internet and in these videos, and I'm sure that whoever investigates this case will happen upon him. He's bringing up her name, and she's just trying to ingrind herself and draw attention to herself. And she would be nothing without having been associated with me, $300,000 a year, me, right? Buying properties and buildings. He's never, ever helped the poor. And that's pretty upsetting to me, because we sacrificed a lot to get this grassroots movement started. And not one poor person has ever benefited from anything we did. Because we were hooked up with the wrong organization. And all the time he's saying UNICEF and Habitat for Others or whatever, all those people are just ripping people off. We're not. Just send your money to me. I'll take care of it. The brethren need money to fly to France and wherever we get around. And we just sucked into the deal. And after, like I said, 4.5 years, my wife and I were looking at each other going, I'm sorry, but we need to see some results. There are other things going on that that we're not helping anybody.
So as far as.
What's your phone number, Harry?
208
Go ahead.
As far as
431
more information
9346.
you may need,
346.
what we've talked about.
Okay.
And that's I put my address
Is
on
there
one of those
a
documents.
up here, I've got that
That's
up
my
here.
mailing address.
Send it to.
So I've got my email here at work.
Okay.
I'll give you my card.
Oh, cool. And do you have information where if you need something, I can.
Okay.
And so what I think I'm gonna do is
Hold on.
take what you've given me here, take what I've heard, contact someone at the Attorney General's office.
It's gotta be, let me see if I got a card out here.
And,
real quick.
say, hey, this is something you
So
guys,
that video also that we
You
got-
should, you have my email. You
Yes, I
emailed me
do.
the other day,
I
so
do.
you have my
I
email,
remember,
yeah,
yeah.
and you got my, yeah, you got, oh, sorry.
Yes, that is all we ask. Is just somebody just listen.
no, I can tell.
I've gotta go.
And this,
I had a meeting at 2, and that was the one calling me from the other school, and I gotta get out of here.
okay. All right, well, hey,
But yeah, thank you. We'll start
Is there
looking into
a-
this.
Is there a time frame that we can get back in
I
touch?
would think,
contact us.
yeah, I mean,
You've
within the
been
next couple of
overloaded
weeks,
yet.
you should hear something from me.
Okay.
So, I'm not gonna wait to contact.
But the way this is as big as it is, I wanna think Attorney General, or it's gotta be something, I mean, we can't necessarily.
Yeah, I can't tell you for sure how long it'll take them, but I'll contact you and say, this is the person I've talked to, and I'll probably give them your
You've got
phone
my
number.
number.
Yeah, I've got
And
your
I've
phone
got your,
number.
I've got your stuff. I've emailed you. You should have my email
I have
still.
yours.
Okay, this guy, he
And I've got
doesn't
your phone number
know-
now.
He doesn't know parameters. He doesn't know when to stop, right? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. Hey, Nick, this is Robbie. Hey, you know what? I just had this idea. I go, Robbie. No, okay, great. That's
Well, sometimes I'm working at 3 in the morning. It
I
just
know.
depends on the,
I appreciate
depends on the
that.
day.
And when you were calling me, it was my weekend off, and I was gone at training. So
Oh, yeah.
that's
I
why I
did-
wasn't,
I did
and that's why I
try
wasn't
to
calling
do
you
that.
back. So
The number on my card is my desk phone number. So if I don't answer, just leave me a voicemail and get back to you.
All right, I'll give you a couple of weeks then.
yeah, I'm gonna move this chair so you guys can get by there.
in my defamation suit, I countersued so that I could ask for psychological
Nick,
evaluation.
I gotta go, Nick. They just went out this front door over here.
Yes.
Okay.
He has-
Okay, we'll see you guys. Thanks.